We need like an opening.
We should be live.
Need like a theme song or something, I think. You know? I don't know.
Yeah, theme song. Like what do they call that? Yeah, theme song. Something. So welcome anyone who's here yet. We have no one yet, I think. But they'll come trickling in.
Yeah,
we have two watching, so welcome everyone. I'm gonna pop out my chat as usual, so I don't have to look at my own face.
What is this?
Anything wrong with that? What's up, Donna Hoffman in 762? You guys always seem to be here on time. I appreciate it. So what do we got in small talk until we build up a few more people? The Gators won this weekend, so that's good.
Well, we heard back from our guest. He's going to be. I'll send you a link shortly there.
Perfect.
With respect to the show.
I mean, you already have the link for
yeah, so I'll forward it to our guest. And there's a lot of positive feedback with his discussion. And I think he's got a few friends watching tonight. And I think for some of the outsiders that are into preparedness like myself, doing this for a while, it's unique that we have this very special lens into an area of preparedness that goes a bit above and beyond the average prepper.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, I don't want to necessarily say branches, but even like niches or causes maybe, or motivations within the general preparedness community, or even people who not primarily think of themselves as preppers, but obviously engage in that for whatever various reasons, who don't necessarily overlap. Like the only overlap is general desire to be prepared, to have resiliency outside normal systems of support. But beyond that, there's also, all sorts of different reasons, from like the bushcraft. Some people just find it as like a hobby, to just wanting to be self-sufficient, to like you said, 3%ers and government freedom related things, to all sorts of stuff, religious, whatever, so like LDS and everything. So it's really interesting.
That's one thing that bothered me about Doomsday Preppers, and maybe I'll get your take on this, which is how they put everything into a compartment at the end. I said, okay, there was a format or
right. I think that kind of made them choose like why you prep, right? Like what's your reason, like EMP or volcanoes or Z, and they would kind of make them choose. But that
sort of made them look crazy though, because it's like, well, you're only focused on this one area, where preparedness, in my opinion, should embrace all different scales, from replacing your fire alarm batteries for smoke detectors for fire, very common, or blackout, very common disasters, to, as you said, an EMP.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Denab has joined us. I think we'll have to get Denab on again. He's an awesome guy.
For sure.
Hello, Denab. Hello in Quebec, Canada. Cheers from Ontario.
Do any more hunting since last time?
No, well, you know what? I was going to go to a buddy's property on Manitoulin Island here in Ontario, but unfortunately, there was an incident where a police officer was killed over property disputes. So I thought a colored man with a rifle walking around.
It's man of color these days, all right? It's 2020.
A man of color, right?
Get with the program. Right. The order of those words. I always thought that was funny too, because you'd say like colored people was like the antiquated way of saying it. It was accepted at one time as being like the way to say it. But now it's people of color. It's literally the exact same words, just placed in a more like passive voice. But you're literally saying the exact same thing. Like literally the same words even. Colored person, person of color, like it's.
People are retarded. And I think that's what I want to talk to our guest about too, which is, we can assume that, and my friend, our guest, I'm sending you a link right now. Just take a note of what Eric said in the email. I think it's safe to assume we can probably say maybe 10% of the population, 12% they're just morons, and they'll never get it. They're on autopilot all the time. They are
no situational awareness. Yeah,
they're allowing social media and media in general to control and dictate how they move through time. So the reason I bring that up is because one opposing view, or at least an opposite view of my role, in my perspective, is that we've got these unique groups that are very self-aware, have a very clear understanding of what's going on around them, so much so that some of them may have a lack of confidence with respect to the government's reactions in terms of preparedness. But we don't have to go down this rabbit hole. We already know why. I already know why most people are watching this, is they're into preparedness, and they want to take care of their own self-sustainability. So our guest is going to join us tonight. Do you want to give him a quick background on who he is? Maybe a little bit, Eric? Or the
Yeah, so if you guys
if
you guys are regular watchers, oh, it looks like he's connecting right now, actually. So
Cool.
he was the 3%er who had joined us a few episodes ago. Is coming back. Looks like right now, rolling into the chat.
Cool.
So welcome, welcome. Should be an interesting conversation. And,
Mark in LA.
we'll
It's more like in LA. It's more like 40%.
What is 40%?
I said 10 to 12%, as I was suggesting.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it's everything is in the Pareto too, like the 8, or also known as the 80-20 rule. You know what I mean? So
what's the 80-20 rule?
Just that, so 80% of the results of whatever comes from 20% of that group. So usually it's used in like a workplace scenario or a productivity sense, but it also applies to pretty much everything. That like 80% of what's happening out there is a result of 20% of the people. You know, in a workplace, it would be like 80% of your good results are coming from 20% of your workers, that sort of thing. So in this case, it would be 80% of the problems are coming from 20% of the people. The retards, as you put it.
Sounds reasonable. Destiny is asking, was formerly Evil Blonde. We should just ignore her for the next 10 episodes, and people will see her comments.
And they'll be like, who are you talking about? I don't see
like, what the hell are you talking about? Proof of life, show the bunny. This girl's crazy. The bunny's fine. You know what? Maybe I'll take a damn photo of the bunny.
Yeah, with the date newspaper for that day.
I don't even see the screen. Is there a third screen on? And
Yep.
Well, there
I'm not sure if he's here, but
yeah, he's on. So maybe you want to edit a couple things there, Eric.
No problem.
There's no audio that I can hear right now with respect to our guest.
Yeah. So if you're present,
you're just joining us. If you have any questions, we'll start there. Please do it in all caps in the comment section. And you know what? I know we miss stuff. I kind of go back and look at some of the videos afterwards sometimes.
Yeah.
And we miss them. And it's just
especially when it's a lot some of these times, and we'll be talking and some guys.
Yeah, so no harm in posting 2 or 3 times, 4 times with respect to a asking your question.
Yeah, if we've answered one after yours, it's a fair bet that we probably missed it. But a super chat's always the best way, even if it's just, honestly, I'm not trying to troll for money, but even $1, it just is much more visible.
Yeah, or even better, $5.
Yeah, exactly. Somehow that's more visible.
Really see it.
I don't think I've ever missed a $100 one, just saying.
So if you really want to get your question through.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So we've got a guest on. It's a 3%er member. What did he say? Was an active member, formerly active? Well, perhaps we'll clarify that. But if you're, obviously he's watching and attempting to connect, there's an issue with your audio. We can't hear anything.
Yeah,
I know when I did this on my phone, there was a button I had to push called dial over internet. So what might help if you could try this, maybe disconnect and then reconnect, and before you go live, see if there's any options there.
Doesn't look like it's on my end.
Yeah, we're not hearing anything here.
Yeah,
we're not hearing a thing. So.
Oh, so you disconnected. Yeah. So might be connectivity.
All right. How was your week, man? What's going on?
It was good. They're restricted some things here in Vegas as of today. Luckily, not going into the full lockdown for the coronavirus, but now they're taking which I was worried about because our governor Sisolak is a giant retard. And he recently got coronavirus.
Oh yeah, cool.
Apparently he's recovered. But it's interesting too because all these people out there, like he's, I don't know, 66, 67, Trump's 73 or 74. All these guys and they're like obese too. You know what I mean? These are not paragons of health. And these guys are all shaking it off. Like, how at this point is anyone really afraid of it? And I'm not even saying, because when I talk to people, I'm not telling people that there's no risk from this. I'm just saying that life has inherent risks. And if you were to just chart every risk of death that you face on a day-to-day basis and didn't show what it was, all it just showed was the percentage or the chance that this is going to, you wouldn't even know where coronavirus was on that list. It certainly wouldn't be at the top. And to make all these super drastic changes that are in some cases causing death from like suicides and different things like that, it's just crazy. So it's really bizarre.
Overdoses. That's a big one I heard today.
Yeah, overdoses, suicides. Apparently a lot of increase in just general violent crime and specifically domestic violence. People are cooped up with their annoying husbands and wives, slapping them around, I guess. Destiny said, did Eric buy TP this week? No, I very, very rarely buy TP. First of all, I don't use that much.
That's because he only craps once a week.
Yeah, I have like a rock hard goat pellets once a week, and then dust it off with a can of compressed air. No, and I'll buy a lot at once. But honestly, I'm definitely not even using like a roll a week, so I don't have to buy it very often. And every once if I start to notice a noticeable decrease in the amount I have, I will just go buy another 20, 36 pack or whatever, and there's another half a year's worth of it.
He only uses like one square, and he folds
didn't
it up.
Sheryl Crow at one point, the singer, said that you should only use like 2 squares or something? Yeah. And I'm like, why don't I just use my bare hand at that point? It's like, you're going to get shit on it.
I wonder if she does. Get this mega rock star.
She's sitting in 2 squares of toilet paper. At that point, just get a bidet. Why are you using 1 square of toilet paper? What are you going to do with that?
Idiots. Shows you how much, it doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or not. You're it doesn't make you smart. That's for sure. All right. I see it's another screen there. Do we have
audio?
Any sound?
How are you doing, gentlemen?
There we go. Can hear it. Doing well.
Sorry, it came up with my name initially when I was trying to log on, so I had to cycle back.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We got the audio.
No, good. Yeah, so we'll. So how you doing?
I'm doing good, on high alert like everybody else right now. So
good deal. Yeah, interesting times for sure. And like I've said before, it's getting interesting. Like obviously we'll know with the there's a lot of people who have lost faith, so to speak, and we'll talk about this a little bit with you. What your thoughts are on if it's possible for the election results to get overturned. But I think the fairly agreed upon consensus is that at this point, if they are overturned, the shitstorm will be of biblical proportions.
Yeah, most definitely.
So what are your thoughts on that, on what the possibility is of something along those, even some states or to the entire results of actually changing at this point?
Well, after seeing the actions of Antifa this weekend in Georgia showing up at the rallies, the pro-Trump rallies, fully armed and ballistic armor and all sorts of other plastic shields and whatnot, the possibility of this thing escalating is only going to take a split second. You've got combat hardened pro-Trumpers, and there's probably some combat hardened Antifa members as well. I know I've had a run-in with a few in my times down here in my zone. So, there's, as much as we'd like to think it's a bunch of soy boys with man buns, not all of them are.
No, that's a very good point. We actually mentioned this. I'm not sure if it was the one for your last appearance, but several appearances ago, I'd mentioned that obviously there's a lot of them that are noodle-armed weaklings, you know what I mean, that aren't that much of a physical threat, but even unless they're in numbers. But they aren't all like that. There are some misguided people that were in the military or just happen to be otherwise trained. We saw that guy who was killed not too long ago at one of these protests because the guy got his gun out with a proper grip, put a shot on target in like 1 second or less when he tried to pepper spray him. Like, there are bad guys. You can't count on them all being weak pushovers. So,
yep. And that's the biggest thing right now, is that all this has been set in motion per the plan that the enemies of the nation have wanted. They've had us fired up for years at each other's throats about socioeconomical standings and differences, at each other's throats over religious beliefs and ethnic backgrounds, and just fueling that fire nonstop. And now with this election being stolen, clearly, and the news not covering properly, when the Nora Donalds the other night after the Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis press conference saying a bizarre event, and of course focusing on poor Rudy's hair dye running down the side of his cheek, right, to try to discredit any credibility out of that. They never covered any of the poignant points. But
yeah, and
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I mentioned this before as well, I think that that's one of the reasons why this could really pop off with any developments, because if you're following the mainstream media, certainly they're not covering any. They're just talking about how crazy Trump is and he's whining all the time. So any new developments are not going to get the proper press that they deserve. So to them, it'll just seem like this instantaneous reversal out of nowhere if it happens, which will make it even more shocking and upsetting to them. And so it'll really increase the likelihood of people getting angry.
Yeah, and that's, it's been well played by the other side to to persuade it that way with people, to just give them what they think they know they want to have them hear because of their Trump derangement syndrome. They're going to buy whatever's being pushed, and they're not going to investigate further because, they're taking their news 15 minutes at a time tops, usually when they're watching the news. Whatever the news box talking TV tells me, I'm going to believe. I've gone dark on all social media other than Parler. I've been one of the people that have jumped over, and the amount of information on Parler has been stunning. The research that some of these people are diving into has been, it's just been a godsend for me, because I've been walking around the house like, do I have too many layers of tin on my head at this point when I'm talking to people about stuff? And now all of a sudden there's 1,000 people that are all showing and pointing the same direction. So, but the problem was going to be from the get-go was to make a questionable election no matter what.
Right.
And if this gets rammed through, which I don't think legally it can, but unfortunately we've seen in the past when the Republican Party's in office, things kind of go on the precipice, like we're going to go over this jump, and then last minute they pull back because some backroom parlor deal has been made, and nothing happens. So if nothing happens, then I think you're going to see the other side. The right is going to come full swing and say this isn't right. I was just reading some information from QAnon saying that, back in 2016, that the military is actually the ones that approached Trump and got Trump running, and just some information in there that was like, okay, well, I do remember, that admiral stepping into the Trump Tower and talking to Trump, and people being upset because he skipped the chain of command and went to visit. So maybe is there some truth to QAnon being part of the military, and they were trying to commit a coup d'etat against Hillary Clinton had she gotten in, because their elections were fixed back then, which now, knowing what we know about Dominion, Cytel, and Smart Tech probably isn't too far from the truth. So, I've felt for months now that we've been on a powder keg. The fuse is definitely lit right now. And it's just going to be a couple of weeks, I think, before we see what's going on. There's just too many people on both sides saying, hell is coming, the storm is coming, the storm is coming. So we as preppers, or as, patriot groups, or whatever type of group you may be in, need to be prepared. And it's not just here in the US. I mean, there's protests in Venezuela on the lockdowns. Berlin had a big protest. California, I'm proud to see all the patriots out in California thumbing their nose at Gavin Newsom's 10 o'clock PM curfew, and, thousands of people walking on the streets. So people need to realize that if you want to stand for this nation, it's no longer time to be an armchair quarterback. It's time to either stand up and put up, or stand back and help supply. And that's the way I'm kind of looking at things right now.
Well, dude, I could talk to you for 5 hours. You just seem like just very intellectual and right on same mindset for sure. But I got to consider the audience, and I got to go into one avenue where I've personally had a struggle or internal conflict, which is your sources of information. I'm not familiar with Parler. I'm just going to assume it's another social media platform.
Yeah, it's like a Twitter kind of, not clone, but a very similar type of social media platform.
Enough. Okay, cool. Now, you're on there now, and I don't trust previous sources that I had endorsed, 4 or 5 months ago. What specifically, or how specifically through Parler do you get your information, and what do you determine the difference between what is credible and has integrity as opposed to something that's frivolous?
Well, see, and that's the key to any social media. If you see something online, don't just reshare it. Do your research. Follow the links they give you. See, okay, well, I haven't ever heard of this new faction news company before. What's their background? How long? Oh, they've been in the game since 2019. Okay, well, who's their editor? Who's their lead? Oh, it's coming from Breitbart. Oh, it's coming from Gateway Pundit. Okay, there might be a little bit more with some that's coming from Gateway Pundit. But Lynn Wood, for example, the lawyer who's taken action on his own down in Georgia, has been pretty active on Parler, and a lot of his links to his stuff is being posted on there. Sidney Powell has a private account on there, but there's a lot of references to her stuff. The Trump team is on there. They're constantly posting their daily brief notices that they're putting on there. So that's kind of nice to be able to see directly from Trump. That's what he was originally kind of using Twitter for before, they started going all lockdown censorship on it. So it's again, you can get information from there, but you need to do the research, because we can't ever take this stuff on face value, because I look at everything now as, is this a propaganda piece to get me to react in some way that they want me to react that would negatively impact efforts by those out there? And I think that's what the talking box has been doing for years. It's telling people.
That said, is there any, for the audience too, is there a particular source? Is there one individual that you don't question, that you've been following for, a substantial amount of time? It's okay, well, it's bang on again. It's bang on again. These sources check out to always be true. And if you don't have one, that's fine. But just if we could direct to reliable sources, continuity or consistent sources that prove over and over again to have a credible background.
Yeah, so one of them is a former Special Forces operator, Michael Yan. He works out of Hong Kong. He's an independent reporter. He was covering the riots in Hong Kong. He's the one that I was getting my initial information that I was passing on to friends and family that, hey, there's this virus starting to happen over here in Hong Kong. We need to be aware. And I started telling my wife that, look, I'm going to start stocking up on some stuff. I think we.
How do you spell this? And folks, I'm writing this down, so that may be a signal to you to suggest doing the same. How do you spell his last name?
Y-O-N.
Y-O-N. Okay, from Hong Kong, Michael. Cool. I'm going to check that out. Anybody else?
He's also got a Patreon account that he's always preaching to help him, because he's an independent guy. And he's been escorted out of China a couple times, so he's tried to get in and out. But because he was reporting pro-democracy and covering the brutality by the Hong Kong police, that they didn't care for that too much. So
disgusting what's happening over there. Absolutely disgusting. Anybody else?
Well, the Gateway Pundit, as far as news articles, is something that I've been pretty consistently following, and a lot of their stuff seems to stay right on target. Cool. Lynn Wood is somebody that I do follow his information and his interviews quite a bit. Blaze TV, obviously with Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck recently had Sidney Powell on, and I knew the servers in Frankfurt had been acquired, but as everybody was sitting there waiting for a while to see whether or not we got them in Frankfurt, or if CIA got them, Sidney Powell finally came clean on Friday on Glenn Beck, saying the good guys got the servers. And Louis Gohmert from Texas had been saying that, and that's somebody else that I tend to follow his feeds as well too. So
yeah, a lot's going to come down to that. Like, obviously for this, unless these multiple people are completely making all this stuff up, which I seem to think is kind of unlikely, it's all going to come down to what kind of data they were actually able to recover. There's certain, I'm not really sure that I buy the whole that everything was a sting set up from the beginning kind of idea, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the goods, obviously. But certain things like firing, what was it, Krebs or Cleves or whatever from CISA. Yeah, after the election, you know what I mean? That doesn't strike me as being something that was necessarily planned. You would have had a loyalist in there, hopefully, if you knew that he was that ridiculous. But a lot of it's going to come down to what information, because it's obvious from a statistical point of view that there is massive amounts of fraud. These are literally the things that we look at to know that elections in countries like Venezuela and Russia and stuff are not, above board, and they're just being from a statistical analysis standpoint. They're just bright red flags, and multiples of them. And some things that literally have no other explanation, like vote participation rates above 100%, things like that. Literally, there is no explanation other than that there's something got corrupted, whether it was accidental or purposeful. These obviously are not the real results. They literally cannot be.
Well, just got to walk through a cemetery and see how many I voted stickers are on the tombstones, right?
Yeah, so. And then the literally even the ones that they've admitted, these were not mistakes. Someone forgot to plug in the flash drive or something stupid like that. All of those quote unquote mistakes and glitches and errors have only gone in one direction, which in and of itself is statistically improbable as well.
Yeah, it definitely just too many red flags with it for sure. So that's why when I was given the link to the White House page where the 2018 executive order that I had heard whisperings of, that Trump had kind of set this into play, and then I read that document and I'm like, man, I really hope this is legit. I really hope that if he has done this, I mean, it would just be not just for the Americas, but for the world. If he actually was smart enough, I mean, if he's playing 4D chess and everybody else is playing checkers, that's what this is going to amount to if this comes down. And I think there's just too much here that's being uncovered not to go down. But again, the hesitation or the pessimists saying, well, they always say they're going to take care of it, and then nothing ever happens, nothing ever changes. But
right. And it's certainly possible that all these courts and lower level courts and state legislators, like, I don't think people even if they were presented with this stone cold proof of all this stuff, they would literally, if some state legislators decide to flip and go against what was perceived as the popular vote, they would instantly become the most famous / hated people on the planet. And I don't think a lot of these people are ready for that or willing to put up with it. So I think the best case we'll see from that perspective is them punting off to either higher courts or something like that. But which doesn't really work that way for legislators. So I think it all relies on what sort of evidence they have of the electronic fraud that wouldn't have anything to do with legislative decisions.
Well, I think the states that change the election laws without the state legislation, that's a federal crime right there.
That's an easy one. Yeah.
That sets the stage to show, okay, well, they changed this. The judge won't hear. He won't even look at the affidavits, or she, to be politically correct. They won't even look at the affidavits. They won't even give us time to go over them. They're just dismissing it. I think that also helps to strengthen the case when it gets to Supreme Court.
But I also think that would give them the opportunity to not really make a decision about who won, but to just say, oh, well, obviously they didn't follow the rules. So any ballots that don't follow the rules have to be set aside. And they'll be like, does that mean Trump won? Oh, I don't know. But if it's just literally, you know what I mean? Like them saying, we're going to select electors that are going to vote for Trump because we don't trust these results. I don't think that's happening. They don't have the balls. There's no way. The type of people to become that level politician don't have the balls to do that. We even saw that briefly in already with legislatures or the council to certify the votes being threatened, folding initially. Luckily, they went back on that, but that's the sort of stuff that's going to be happening. So I think we'll have to rely on actual evidence coming out.
Notorious BRG has a question for you, our guest. When does our guest think the ammo shortages will end? 2021, 2022, never?
I would honestly say never, because being a former New York State member and resident for years, the big push in New York State after the Gun Safe Act was to start limiting the amount of bullets you could purchase. They've been unsuccessful in being able to get gun bans in and restrict and gun buybacks put in place. So what's the next best way to attack your Second Amendment rights? Your ability, make it expensive, tax the crap out of it, limit you to how many you can buy. New York State, you can't buy online. You're just limited. So even if you go to Vermont to try to get ammo, or Massachusetts, good luck in Massachusetts anyways, and Connecticut, I used to go to one of the big box store chains that everybody knows around the world, and everybody's got a hat or a t-shirt from there probably. And I had bought my firearms from them originally, but after Sandy Hook, they changed things. I went back to get ammo. I had the credit card for their store, and I walked in to get ammo, and they wouldn't sell it to me because I wasn't a resident in Connecticut. I had to go get a license to buy ammunition. And when I questioned the manager I was talking to, she treated me like I was a criminal. And I finally contacted the corporate office and spoke to the regional manager, and she apologized, saying, we're sorry, she shouldn't treat you like that. But, again, maybe due to sensitivity with the Sandy Hook, maybe it was near and dear to her heart. I don't know. But still, that's the end goal, is to stop the purchase of ammunition. So if anybody out there is thinking about getting reload equipment, do it now, right? Don't wait. Don't start saying, well, I'm going to get into making my own ammo one day. Start doing it now. When you go to the range, public range, and there's brass and ammo sitting around, ask them, hey, do you mind if I take a handful of this or that? Nah, go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they'll try the same thing with the components as well, with the powder, with the primers, things like that. So obviously it's better to have more options for reloading and things like that, but it's not a magic bullet, because of the same things could happen. So I think stockpiling is obviously one solution if you have the money to try and build up what you can now at these crazy prices.
other areas as well, which I might be careful with my words here, entertaining or looking into, which is actually getting these 3D machines and printing out
3D
specific
printers.
components for certain things. We have a question from a gentleman named Poor Man's Bushcraft.
Okay.
If this all goes to slinging lead, I'm not too sure it's
Slinging lead.
Probably lead. Yeah.
Lead. Yeah.
what do you
bullets start
think?
flying.
What do you think the front lines will look like? Will it be Dem versus Rep, or left versus right, or a free for all?
Honestly, I think it'd just be a free for all. I mean, even amongst the 3%ers, there's animosity between different 3%er groups, because you've got members that were kicked out of one group for one thing and they go join the other group and they pledge their hatred or whatever. I mean, it's just stupidness. You know, you even saw the volunteer fire service I was in, you'd have somebody get all butthurt over something and then they go to another fire department and they'd carry that grudge the rest of their life. I don't think it's going to be a clear line. It's not going to be all the militias moving in side by side and going against Antifa and BLM. It's going to be street gangs will be out there. You'll have neighborhoods that'll have their own little posses and communities. You're just going to have a ton of different groups. So that would be what I envision for what would come when the fuse kicks off.
I tend to agree. I've said before that there's not going to be a civil war in the sense that there'll be like two sides like we've seen in the past. It's just the demographics and the ideological groups don't break down that way to where there will be just like two sides. We'll see some just increase in what we've already been seeing with groups like Antifa and other groups that are opposed to them, but there's not just going to be two coherent large sides that would form in an event like that. It'll be regional, all sorts of different things like that. Some states might try to secede or something like that. Like, who knows what could happen.
Well, and you've also got to worry about the interference from Cuba, Venezuela, China, Russia, you know, all these entities. I mean, our first Revolutionary War, how many different countries were backing different sides? Yeah. So, you know, anytime anybody sees a nation in trouble and they think they can profiteer off of it, they're going to send in their best to try to make things worse, you know, or try to gain favor with, you know, the developing nation. You know, it's just basic CIA tactics, KGB tactics, CCP tactics. It's just stuff that's going to happen when this goes down.
Interesting times.
Someone says,
I heard that they fired Sidney Powell. Oh no. Yeah, I've seen this people recently. All they did with that press release was state that she is not officially like hired onto the Trump team, which has always been the case. Same with Lynn Wood. They didn't disavow her. She wasn't fired from the team. They were just stating a fact that she's not on the team officially. So I wouldn't read into that too much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Prepper Trifecta. We've got a special guest from 3%ers. Thanks again for joining us again. I feel in some respects it's kind of like if you ever see X-Files and Mulder puts the X in the window, and then we get this guy shows up and just gives all this really sort of cool, interesting information, unique perspective. I think that's the role that
well, who shows up when he does that? Is it the lone gunman? Is that when they show up? Or is it the
it's just that one dude like nobody knows his background really, nobody knows anything about him. This guy shows up and tells Mulder, you know, you got to do this is the direction things are going. I'm gonna grab another beverage. Maybe we can do memes when I get back.
I've got a few. I've got like a 8 or 9, nothing crazy.
Oh really?
So
okay.
Yeah, so I've been curating the memes. I don't tend to put ones on here that are just straight like statements or political stuff that aren't funny, or if they're too much of a boomer meme, I won't put it on here anyway. So I do some curating. So if you sent one in and they don't all make it on air, sorry.
Yeah, maybe we're gonna do some kind of special Patreon live thing for the hardcore people in the future. I'll be right back.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so it's an interesting times, but let's go over COVID for a minute because and how do you think that's going to affect any of this stuff? And just in general, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this, here in Vegas, they just today, as a matter of fact, retightened restrictions, not to the extent that there's a full lockdown, because I don't think that they really expect people to follow that anymore, which is good. But they did go back to pretty strict restrictions on occupancy and stuff for restaurants. Is there, in your area, you've seen anything like that?
Well, so as far as lockdowns, we've got an awesome governor here, Ron DeSantis, and he's pretty much said, no, we're not doing it.
I'm stoked about that. I'm from Florida, actually. I don't know if you remember, but so I'm definitely happy to see that the literal, like, who is it, meth head Gillum or whatever, didn't make it
busted in Miami with a male escort.
Yeah, covered in
overdosing.
Shit. Yeah.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, so as far as some of the observations that I've seen this weekend have been pretty telling. There have been a lot more New York plates coming down here. The wife and I were out driving around running errands yesterday, and we went past a couple U-Haul places, and the empty U-Haul vans were lined up on the street trying to get in and checked in. So I know the governor of Illinois has just sent his family down to their Wellington 30-acre ranch with 30 horse trails on it, an indoor equestrian barn while they're locking down. So fortunately for where I'm at, the lockdown's not going to happen. Now, my family up in Maine and Pennsylvania, they're not so lucky. Governor Mills has told anybody outside, just walking your dog on the beach by yourself, you got to wear a mask. Pennsylvania is saying that if you've got more than 2 people in your house, you need to wear a mask. So, you're going to have all these people driving around the car by themselves wearing masks. So
dorks.
Well, it goes beyond that. It goes to the point that they want you controlled. They want you feared. Yeah. And then, I could do a whole nother segment with you guys on other stuff that I've learned about, possible reasons why, besides mail-in ballots, why the virus was launched. And I do mean launched, not just naturally occurring. There's just a lot of scary things that if it's all connected into potentially what Donald Trump's trying to face and take down, and why there's been so much pushback for him the last 4 years, this could be a real game changer for the world.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of weird things that as a result of the virus that don't make sense. I don't know if I'm ready to buy into the full on that it was all a plan, but there's certainly stuff that doesn't make sense. Everything from the way China was reacting to it initially, which in a large part kind of guided, I know, like Che and myself and JJ were seeing those things from overseas, and that was the only information you had about how serious this was. And then you see when it gets to other countries and like, why would they have been acting so over the top about this? Like, some people seem to think that they even did that on purpose just to get everyone else to react majorly, because they know it would hurt other countries more than it would hurt themselves. But who knows? It's a lot of weirdness.
Well, it's kind of funny too, because Michael Young was talking about the virus. Like, they started talking about the virus during the riots in Hong Kong. So was it released maybe intentionally there to
quell their own riots and just escape? Like, there's all sorts of stuff that could have been going on.
A lot of fascinating theories that I hear from other preppers with. People are reacting differently. People that were into preparedness have gone a little loopy. People that were not into preparedness have suddenly, the light switches went off, and suddenly they're rational and logical and taking this with a lot of precaution, I think. So with that said, sir, Mr. 3%er, we have to endure this stupid Eric every week. We got to do the memes. This is the only reason I'm here, Jay, is for the meme.
Did you get the one I sent you via text the other day?
Did you send? I thought that was an advertisement. I didn't even read it. I thought it was because I'm
getting spam. You can email. Do you have it that you could email? I could throw it up.
Maybe I'll send it. I'll send it. There's a way to share your screen. You know what? We won't do that.
You just shoot it over to the email and I'll drag it on here.
Yeah, it's on.
Because I don't have all and keep in mind, guys, that if it's just a funny meme, it doesn't necessarily have to be related to prepping or politics or anything like that. Because there's one on here that it's so stupid. But I was dying laughing, and it has nothing to do with anything. It's completely unrelated. But I was crying laughing almost. Did we lose Che?
No, I'm here. I'm grabbing our guest.
All right, so you ready you want me to throw mine on here first?
Yeah, go for it. I might not be
got able like 11 or 12. I think one of these, you already posted, Che, a while ago. I can't remember. But
go for it.
It's this first one right here. So it says, when you hear a noise at night, but you're a Democrat. Didn't you post this one already, Che?
No.
No?
I didn't.
Okay,
guest,
I thought I recognized
3%er
it.
guest, I'm so sorry. I'll tell you what, I'll post it next week. Give some incentive for
it's all good
to come by.
All right, here's the next one. We got If the lockdown worked the first time, why are we having another? If the lockdown didn't work the first time, why are we having another? Either way, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And we got, this is the one that cracked me up. Said, hey, what's up? Sorry, my car's a mess. Haha, you can just throw that in the back. It's like a pile of spaghetti. So this makes zero, like totally out of nowhere, but hilarious nonetheless. You should see Biden tear through a crossword puzzle. It's right to the end. Bam. Doing it like a maze. Then we have, don't worry, man, we'll find your missing daughter. I think this one might also be a repeat.
Reminds me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, he'll sniff them out right quick. And then we got, you could do anything on 2007 to 2012 Twitter. I showed people how to cook crack in the microwave and nothing happened. Now I can't even call a bitch fat. And then this other guy says, back in the 60s, you could join Belgian paramilitaries in the Congo and shoot at UN forces and get paid for it. Now you can't even call someone gay online. Different times. And then we got girls say, am I fat? And say, oh my God, no, you're beautiful. And guys say, bro, am I fat? Bro, I know 5 fat people and you are 4 of them. Oh, good times. Then we got 15 days to flatten the curve. 2-week lockdown will fix it. We need a vaccine. Even if you get the vaccine, you still need to wear a mask. Just putting on the clown makeup. And we got normal people reacting like this, they're going to die, and conspiracy theorists. It's pretty much the story of what's going on in the world now, unfortunately. Then we got, did you know that the name of the device that's installed in a car to slow it down and keep it from reaching its potential? A governor. That's the governor of Michigan. Yeah. Whitmer. And then we got, this is Emily. Emily wants to join the girls' football team. Emily can't because of the transphobic rules. Justice for Emily. And we have, just so you know, this is the guy calling you a Nazi on the internet.
Yeah.
Too true. And that's back at the beginning. So that was all I got for today.
Yeah. Wow. I think I got you beat this.
Okay, good. I like
this
to help the
time.
competition.
We should let the guests decide moving forward.
The choose a winner.
Yeah, well, I think they're pretty good.
Okay.
So I guess we'll find out. So I've got to open up. I'm on my cell here. I've got to go to another screen. Figure out this Zoom thing. I think hopefully I've cut out the feedback in the background.
I haven't heard it yet. I mean, your mic in general has been a lot better.
Yeah, last weekend it sounded like the aliens in us signs.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'd love to see more of his work. I think
Signs is kind of underrated, by the way, as a movie.
Yeah, it wasn't his best work.
It was way better than Lady in the Water.
Yeah, I mean, he really fell off after that. Or Happening. The Happening is low key hilarious though, if you're ready for it.
Was it
like a kid gets blown away with a shotgun?
Yeah, The Village. I think that was the other one that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. Not amazing, but it was interesting.
Yeah,
just like
yeah, just like that. Little Susie cured. Worst virus of all.
Amen.
I think Eric showed this before. Gynecologist visits.
It's called telemedicine, Shay. It's real.
Yeah,
it's got doctors and everything.
I don't know why I found this oddly funny, but an actual photo of service dogs watching Billy Elliot the musical is a part of their behaving in a theater training. And yeah, it's just, I think it's adorable. You know, these puppies sitting there watching a movie. Yeah, service dog. And this is, Eric's got some kind of weird fetish with feet. Remember you were talking about that last week with Morgan?
I was not talking about that. I was saying
those decidedly
not a foot person. But I was talking with someone recently, and I was like, there seems to be a lot of these dudes that are into feet. How come there's none that are like into hands? Like, it just doesn't seem to be a thing.
Should send that to Morgan, put it on our page that it's her feet.
Right. No.
Oh yeah, because they're talking. Yeah, it seems like all the girls get weird dudes asking for feet pictures.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
We should. Well, maybe we'll show when she comes back. Hey, Morgan, look at this. You know,
we'll just send her pictures of our feet and tell them to send it to the guys that asked for it.
So this is a dog who dressed up for Halloween at the end there. This is kind of funny. This is like the slowest news date ever. Out of date pasty sold to a young mom. I don't even understand how this.
Toddler took a bite of food 3 days as a prepper. You're not even thinking about it being old. It's only 3 days past the sell by date. That's practically brand new. I have a video where I'm eating a 9-year-old can of beans. It's fine.
I got a story about Bruce Beach, the guy that buried 42 school buses underground. We're actually going to have him as a guest next week.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, nice.
Which should be cool. He's a friend of mine. I've been there plenty of times. And if you're ever down and we're up here in Ontario, I'll give you guys a private tour any day of the week. This is fucking hilarious. Coronavirus enters the body. The Flintstone vitamins I ate 20 years ago.
Activated.
Activation.
Those things were delicious, by the way.
I put that on my Facebook wall. So to me, I thought it was pretty good. But
yeah.
I have to go with the very first one as my favorite of the night, though.
The dildo gun.
Oh, really? Seriously? All right.
When your pistol's bigger than your actual gun.
Exactly.
This quick story with Bruce. I've been going over there for off and on for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years now. 6, 7 years. Done the tours, bring people here and make a big thing of chili. They hang out, they meet Bruce. It's a kind of a cool experience. For those who don't know, he was on that Doomsday Preppers, and he put 42 school buses, buried them underground. He was a radiologist, a retired scientist at this point, and he's got various concerns. Interesting man. He's going to be our guest next week, so it's going to be an interesting show. He's a very nice guy. Anyways, we're talking one day. We don't, people prepare for various reasons. Me and him are not 100% in alignment. There's a lot of, point in question. You guys know the V8, the drink, the big red
tomato juice, basically.
Yeah, I get like a 1 liter bottle, or 750. That was the big thing back in the 90s, or this big bottle of V8. For whatever reason, one conversation one day with Bruce veered in such a way that we're talking about this V8 bottle that he had bought. It had gone bad after 10 years to the point where it was black. There was no preservation involved. It wasn't like he pressure canned it, or
so he bet him $20 to chug it or something.
He drank it, and he's like, "Oh, it was okay," and I'm like, "Dude, you are off your fucking rocker." But he drank this black, expired V8 bottle, which I don't know, just if you understand basics of food preservation, maybe drinking black V8 after 10 years is the best move.
Now you just jinx yourself, because when the shit hits the fan and that last food item you find is a black bottle of V8.
At least it won't kill you, though. You can see this has been done. You can stand on the shoulders of giants and chug the black V8.
Yeah, that's the depths of preparedness he's trying to reach and teach other people. I'm doing this for you.
Yeah. Or it could be like we were talking about before, where you purposely taint some element of your food storage in case you get compromised or robbed. They don't know which one is poisoned, and then they'll all die.
Are there any underground secret techniques the 3%ers discuss above and beyond regular preparedness channels or individuals? Is there something unique to the 3%ers that it's sort of a standard security protocol upon entry? Let's just say you become a member and you get the guys that are like, yes, got the tattoo, whatever, they're full-fledged right into it. Is there any fundamentals or basics that traditionally doesn't get any mainstream attention or public view?
Well, I think each sector or zone has their own kind of setup. I know in New York, I built a nice cabin that could house 30 people, good perch, good location, high ground, all the good stuff. East side of a mountain. So it was just kind of a great location for the group when I was up there. Down here, I don't want to go into too much detail, but that there is a location which is pretty centralized for most people. So it's pretty easy to get to. It's kind of an all-purpose location. As far as underground down here, as Eric can attest, the water table is always a concern. So, where I'm at closer to the coast, if I try to put a bus in the ground, the first time you get a heavy rain, the thing's going to pop up out of the ground.
There's issues in Florida, with if you can't even drain your pools, because then they're like a boat and the water underground will pop them up and crack the concrete and stuff. The good thing about that from a preparedness perspective is that pretty much no matter where you are in the state, if you need water and there just doesn't happen to be any around you, which is already rare, all you have to do is dig straight down in the sand, and you probably won't even get 4 to 6 feet before you'll have water in the hole. So
yeah, so
that is complicated. Like, there's no basements in Florida for that reason.
No, No, and that's one of the things that, down here is a different challenge. So, the survival game is different in each region or zone of the US or any country for that matter that you go to. Up in New York, a lot of the area where I was at was shale. So good luck trying to dig into that without heavy excavation equipment, or, spending a weekend with a jackhammer isn't my idea of fun. So, you got to kind of look at how can you get around it. So then build an underground type of setup off the side of the hill, cover over it is usually the easier way to go a lot of times, unless you're down in the valleys of New York. And then, you might have a little easier time at it. So every location, that underground bunkers that they were selling on National Geographic for Doomsday Preppers, some of those things were top notch, like, above and beyond what they were doing in the 50s and 60s. But the principle is still the same for those that they were in the 50s and 60s. You got to have clean air. You got to have an aerated decon. You got to have food storage. You got to have battery storage. So, each area within 3%ers, everybody's a little bit different. And for clarification for the audience, I am a non-active member at this point. So I'm kind of gray man on it. Everybody still knows me, still chat with some of the leadership. They still know where I'm at. They still know that, shit hits the fan, then they're going to see me arriving with, probably 6-7 people after I wait for the shelter in place to kind of go through and then prepare my bug out move. So
why did you leave?
Well, part of it, believe it or not, I mean, just like any type of group, is the consistency of the group, the makeup of the group. It was a bit different down here than what it was up north. Now, Eric, you're from the South, originally born and raised in Florida, right?
Yep.
So there is still kind of that adversarial relationship between North and the South.
Right.
And some of the members didn't care that there were so many leaders in position from the North. I just got sick of the babysitting, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Having people that were supposed to have been vetted and checked, and then, talk about having them move in with me, and then suddenly find out when they're talking to me at my house that, oh yeah, I've got a federal warrant for my arrest. I'm like, I can't have you here. You're not even supposed to be in the group. So, it's just little things where security protocols weren't quite followed to the extent that just really kind of spooked me, because it really started making me question how many of these other members, as I said 2 weeks ago, you have to be surrounded by people you can trust. And there's some great people out there, again, that are patriots that did some stupid stuff when they were young. And unfortunately it follows them. But at the same time, back in the blue for me and believing in government, as far as not overreaching, but actually civil citizens with law-abiding citizens around me is critical. So that's part of the big reason. The other thing was the next model of wives was very scared of the group, because she had drank the Kool-Aid from what she had seen on the news, paramilitary group. Oh my gosh, what are you doing? You're meeting with Antifa people. They're going to track you down. It's like, they already know where I live. If they're asking the request to talk to me, they already know everything they need to know about me. And they're all computer geeks anyway, so they're going to be able to do whatever they need to do. So, that just kind of spooked her. So for, happy house, happy spouse type of scenario. So, but she knows that if the shit hits the fan, she trusts my preps. She knows I'm a little obsessive, but after this pandemic and all the shortages that started happening, she's finally she realizes, if I put that bag of rice in the cart, she knows why I'm doing it. She might question, do we really have to? Yes.
It's funny that you should mention that, because we just were talking about that with Morgan from Road Preparedness last week. I don't know if you tuned in for that.
I did actually.
Yeah, where she was talking about the one extra bag of rice that her husband was like, do we need more rice? And she just mean mugged him while she put it in anyway.
I keep trying to tell. Yeah, well, I keep trying to tell her, I'm like, look, I can eat the dehydrated food. We've got plenty of it. You're the one that's more, she's healthy eating, yoga, Pilates, whatever she's doing all the time. I'm the guy that I'm getting Sonic's cheeseburgers and chocolate milkshake and cheddar poppers for a meal. And that's, my system is fine with it. And I'll be fine with the MREs. I'll be fine with the freeze-dried food. She's going to need some extra protein and extra items in there that will kind of give her a normal taste, because it's going to be a shock to her system if she should have to sustain eating freeze-dried food for 13 months. So
yeah, any dramatic, no matter, even if the food isn't bad, even if you're going to a better diet, any dramatic shift is going to cause some issues. that's something to consider for sure.
I had an event at the with the Ontario Preppers Survival Network. If you're in Ontario or Canada, OntarioPreppers.ca. That's my shameless plug. We do some cool stuff. One event we had 3 or 4 years ago, we went to the Defen bunker. It was a decommissioned bunker. It was issued in the 50s, I believe. It's massive. It's very almost scary how just thinking about how the government said, we're decommissioning this. This is public. I'm thinking this. So it's a massive bunker. Anyways, when we got to the cafeteria, I forget what it said, but it was something along the lines to complement what both you guys were saying. It may not taste the best. There's a huge sign in the cafeteria, huge cafeteria. May not taste the best, but at least you're alive, or something like that.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a meme about Little Caesar's Pizza, because they have those $5 hot and readies, and they're like, it's $5 hot and ready, and someone's like, yeah, but is it good? And they're like, it's hot and it's ready.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that the group, when I was up in New York, there are still 13 missile silos available for sale. One of them was, it was like dream if I ever won the lotto, or the group won the lotto.
Right.
It was $500,000, came with its own airport.
Wow.
So
like an airstrip or a helipad or what?
Actual airstrip.
That's cool.
I'll join you on that adventure. When you were in New York, did you ever have a chance to meet Jason Charles, who's infamous for the APN, not the APN, New York. He's got the New York preparedness group through Meetup. He was on Doomsday Preppers, firefighter. Do you know the gentleman I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking about from the show, but I did not get a chance to meet him.
Okay. We may actually have him on in a few weeks. Again, cool. He was on the show last year. Awesome guy, and doing a lot of good things in New York for individuals out there. We are getting close to the 1 hour window. Is there anything you want to share with the audience, or any messages you wish to relay? Product, plug, website, anything?
Well, again, I'm not a product tester. I'm not a YouTuber. I just signed up for Rumble. But some advice I would give your listeners, because I know you had a question, I think last week, where you guys were talking with Morgan, that somebody had asked about, well, I just started off. The biggest thing is just add, a couple extra cans of food. If you're traveling, well, nobody's really traveling anymore, but when you travel, if travel opens back up, grab the toiletries from the hotel. Because I used to always teach my guys and gals that, believe it or not, those luxury items are bargainable. They're absolute commodity. If things go down, you've got something to trade. So if somebody's desperate to take a shower and they want shampoo and conditioner, you've got little toiletries available. Besides, you got stuff for yourself. If you go out to eat and they give you the plastic utensils and the napkin packs, keep that stuff. That's all valuable stuff that doesn't cost you a dime to gather. So
yeah, no, I agree. We've mentioned that before, that so much of prepping is just having more of the things you need on an everyday basis. And then obviously you can get into beyond that, more self-sufficient type stuff, like ways to cook it, in power outages and things like that. But, bottom line, food, water, medicine / toiletries, if you have to sit in your dark house and just eat canned beef, that you will survive. You know what I mean? So those are the things to take care of. And don't let it be overwhelming. Just start to get a few extra shelf-stable, non-perishable foods. Canned goods don't even necessarily have to be heated up, to eat. And I'm actually going to be making a video soon on what I consider the best canned good for preppers too.
Cool. We're checking that out.
Pickled eggs by chance?
The what?
Pickled eggs.
Depends, I guess, if you like it. No, but this particular one, brand included. You'll have to watch my video for the reveal. But it's really cheap, really good mix of macros, and as far as prepping food goes, and pretty good.
Yeah, a bit of a balance too between quality of nutrients and quality of taste, and
right. And when it comes down to it, I'm a big proponent of calories are king, because especially when you're considering, I'm not anticipating that most shit at the van events would be extremely long lasting. That's certainly possible, but bottom line is you can go quite a long time on a pretty Spartan diet before you really start to have deleterious effects. And if you just throw in something like a simple multivitamin, having enough food to eat is much more important than worrying too much about different stuff. Obviously after a year or whatever, if you're eating just rice, you might have to start, having some issues, but it's not that hard to get. It would be boring But basically, what you just want to make sure you have enough calories is bottom line. It's easy to sprinkle in a little nutrients after that.
Or we should get a some nutritionist on in the future. Something like that would be kind of cool. I know for the folks that are watching, we've got Terry. Terry's still on. She sent me a bunch of memes. Thank you, Terry. I got to choose one for next week, and also with our guest. We'll put that on. Thanks, Terry. I appreciate it. It was a little too late getting them today. I'll respond to your email. She wrote me this novel, so just give me a couple of days to process it, answer your questions. Yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, maybe a new trade. Okay, so next week, Bruce Beach from Doomsday Preppers buried the 42 school buses underground. It's a really fascinating thing to see. He's going to be on as our guest.
Tell him to get some pictures if you can about his setup.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking of doing that with another gentleman too from Fortitude Ranch. If you could share the photos, and while he's speaking, this gentleman has his PhD from Harvard. He's former U.S. Air Force. He's retired now. His name's Dr. Drew Miller. Absolutely fascinating what he's doing in Colorado. So that's going to be 2 weeks from now, and he's the surplus of applicants that he's getting with his, we'll say, team at his ranch. It just seems like a very fascinating individual. So we'll have him on in 2 weeks' time, and of course, well, we have to have this guest back. We don't have a name. We'll call you Anonymous 3 moving forward, I suppose. Or what would you prefer?
Well, maybe we'll have a big coming out with the reveal of name and photo down the road if you guys like. So
whatever you want, man. It's all good.
All right.
Yeah. Any last words? Or do you guys want to yap some more? It's all good. Whatever you guys want to do.
Well, I'm sure the missus loved that I finally found somewhere where I can talk to people.
You're not cornering her with all your conspiracies.
Yeah, she's not getting ready to red flag law me or something. But,
oh, geez. What a betrayal.
I would also recommend that, for anybody looking to prep, you talk about food sources and running out. I would definitely find some books. They're very easy to find on Amazon or any other store on edibles, natural edibles. There's a lot of great books out there. I like mushrooms, but you need to eat the right mushrooms. You don't want to just grab the wrong one and then you're in for a world of hurt. So there's a lot of plants out there that can be used for medicinal purposes. So start educating yourself on the natural environment and what it can do for you would be my biggest push to start off on prepping. I mean, canning is great. Loading ammo is great. Firearms training is great, but food is going to drive everything you do. And if you don't have the food prep ready, that would be your next best bet. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even somewhere out here in the desert, there are still some plants that you could, graze on occasionally. But and certainly in a lot of other areas, there's lots of stuff.
Perfect opportunity for a plug for a friend of mine. She's probably in the top 5 best well-known edible experts in Canada anyways. Her name's Karen Stevenson. She's been doing events at an annual survival expo that I've been doing here for some years now, 8-9 years. Her website is ediblewildfood.com. Ediblewildfood.com. She's absolutely fascinating woman with all the different facets of knowledge that she has. So several books out, and her website is loaded with information and even recipes. If you have any questions for me, and even on her behalf, if you want me to reach out and get in touch with her, Karen Stevenson from ediblewildfood.com, or even our guest for that matter. You can reach me at info@ontariopreppers.ca. It's Che from Prepper Logic. And thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I want to respect our guest time because we usually go to about an hour in, although, we'll have to do this again. I feel like there's so many additional questions I have for you, but keeping in sake with respect to time and Eric's time as well.
We're good. I do have one final question that I'd like you to weigh in on there, our guest. If you had to guess, and I have my own answer for this question too, but what would be your specific date/timeline to look at for when you think we will either know that something is going to pop off or not within the next 90 days or whatever?
Oh, well, I think we're going to know which direction we're going here pretty quick. I mean, based off, the little pop-off power messages and stuff like that from Len Wood and Sidney Powell and Team Trump, I would say within the next 2 weeks. I would hope it would be sooner. I was hoping the Durham report was going to come out before the election. I mean, so that's kind of why I'm still waiting to see, is this actually going to go down the way I hope it would, that everything is true and come to fruition. But I would say 2 weeks. In 2 weeks' time, we will definitely know. I mean, because we have to know, what is it, the 14th by December, the Electoral College has to have everything out and certified by then. So,
yep, that was my answer exactly. Was obviously not to say that it'll necessarily not happen before that, but certainly by the 14th, we're going to have to know one way or another, at least a big part of what's going on. Because if the Electoral College certifies its results, then, yeah. And also keep in mind, everyone, that people are talking like, oh, why haven't we heard anything? Why haven't we heard this or that? Or why haven't they? It's been less, or about 2 weeks, maybe even less, since the election. Like a case like this, like legal cases like this, would normally take years. And I'm not exaggerating. It would take years. And it's been 2 weeks. So I know it feels like it's been months, but it really has not been that long for something of this magnitude to really shake out. So we're
only getting 8 seconds of the police footage or the cell phone footage of the actual event here, and the press is trying to make a decision on that 8 seconds of video. So and it's
and the press is biased.
Oh yeah,
hellaciously biased. Yeah, I think the 14th, obviously, and then beyond that, obviously Inauguration Day. Those are the 2 dates that are really the most meaningful over the next 60, 90 days to really look for. So that's what I'm keeping in mind.
Well, and the thing I always keep telling everybody to be worried about too is historically the election year that happens on the zeros, Reagan, JFK, those were all the assassination attempts too. So not that I'm pushing that narrative by any means. I don't want you guys to get in trouble, and I'm not thinking that way myself, but I just have concerns that somebody would be set off enough to try something either way that this goes down.
Interesting. It's certainly possible. We know there's enough people out there with enough hatred that it's always a concern. So cool.
Interesting perspective. Don't worry, they'll stop the bullet just like that. just like Neo in the Matrix. That was really easy, actually. What do we see? Something on Destiny, Evil Blonde, Destiny, legs up Harris. Off topic. What an ugly, ugly woman. Like, she's got a nose like a giraffe's head.
She's honestly one of those people that I think our knowledge of just how despicable of a person she is really taints your view of how repulsive she seems. Because at least is like, if she was just in a crowd, and certainly among politicians, I really don't think she's that physically hideous, but she's just such a horrible person that it makes you just hate everything about her. And her laugh and everything.
Irritating. Yeah, especially at Twitter. Yeah. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. But, all good. Anonymous 3, thanks again. You're obviously knowledgeable, and I think we have to make this a regular event and just keep sort of tapping into this vice of this very unique and intellectual perspective that you have. So thanks a lot for coming back, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me back, guys. I really enjoy doing this with you.
If you want to, you can throw out your Parler handle if that's something you're interested in. People,
yeah, people wish to, or do you want to just go through me if people want to get in touch with you? How would you like to do this?
I can throw it out to everybody now if they want. It's real simple. It's @2020 is the new 1776.
Cool. I'll put that in the chat. I'm also on Parler, which I just recently made an account there. I haven't done much with it yet. I believe it's just World of Wasteland. So
it's there's a learning curve to it. So, yeah. I mean, it's not as easy as Facebook, but like I said, the information that's flowing there seems to be pretty on target. I mean, and it could be that I'm just totally center-minded on that side of the fence, but it definitely aligns with a lot of the things I've felt. I know it's lined up with a lot of the thoughts and concerns I've had. And, when you find these documents that they're posting on here, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not that insane. So,
yeah, I mean, and that's what I've said to a few people is that rarely is everything that we see about these events turn out to be true, but it's also true that rarely is all of it turn out to be bogus. And if even 10% of this stuff, shakes out the way that we think it has actually happened, that's some really wild.
Let's go back to documents. What's one in the last week that made you say to yourself, holy shit?
Well, I mean, definitely finding the executive order from 2018 was one of them. And then somebody had posted the user manual for the Dominion software. And, I think it was like page 457 where it talks about being able to alter votes or change it to weighted scale or fractional voting. And it was like, oh, okay.
You've seen where they all wiped their, from LinkedIn, all the Dominion guys, like basically removed their profiles from LinkedIn.
Yes, actually. And Smart Tech down here in Cape Coral had Laura Loomer. I follow her. She's like an alternate news channel. They had people protesting, and Smart Tech put up their hurricane shutters on their building, and there were still people in there. So I just happened to call down and say, I think you got a fire code violation. You got people working inside a building with hurricane shutters up. So I don't know if they stopped, but part of my thought was they weren't just doing that because of the protesters there. They were doing that to stop an FBI raid or special forces raid, like what we saw on the servers for Cytel over in Frankfurt, slow down their entry some. So who knows?
A lot of interesting stuff out there for sure.
So that would be the documents that I would say that kind of opened my eyes, those two documents.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Check out the sources you gave too. At least not to check out this Parler. So I'm trying to get away from social media because there is a lot of, well, let's face it, there's malicious intent, there's greed, there's always.
Yeah, and without being too woo-woo about it, there's just a lot of negative energy, negativity.
Yeah.
Blackpilling or dooming and all that stuff. If you want to.
Doxing is the other concern I had with it. So
the ship has sort of sailed for me, but as far as being out there. But yeah, it's always a concern, like literal location, things like that.
And you just got to be careful on Parler too. Go check out the person's profile. And, I just blocked a bunch of people that sent me requests that were Aryan Nation people. I'm like, I don't want to be aligning with you.
I'm so convinced that so many of those people are agent provocateurs of sorts too. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Create these profiles, associate with you, and then use that to discredit people later if they need to.
Yeah. And
it's such an obvious tactic.
And the big thing for anybody looking at going Parler is make sure that if you see somebody that says they're Rudy Giuliani, that they have a check mark on their actual image that they're verified. Because there was one that just came out the other day. Rudy's got a train going, everybody jump on, and everybody's like putting their handle on there. And to me, I'm like, oh, that's a perfect way to collect a list of people, so.
Well, that's another thing that I feel like the ship has sailed for me. If there are these lists, I'm on them already. So
for sure. I just assume everybody knows everything about me.
Yeah. Well, as I told you guys 2 weeks ago in the offline chat, about my run-in with being on the list already. So.
Yeah.
Hey, I think
I always assume. Go ahead.
No, it's all good.
I was just going to say, I assume that the NSA/FBI is listening to everything I do or say online. Because even if it isn't technically true, if you operate under that assumption, you'll be fairly safe.
Yeah, I definitely woken up to the idea of being very careful with how I articulate things verbally. We had a question pop up here. If you don't mind, Eric, I'll just say this quick. You said it a couple times here. Mark Olson's asking for our guest. Does our guest use Tor?
Tor browser?
I actually use DuckDuckGo.
Okay. Yeah, DuckDuckGo is a search engine. Tor is actually a browser, sort of not really like a VPN, but it's an anonymous browser that you can use to access certain dark web websites as well that aren't listed on things, and also just anonymous internet use, from what I understand.
Yeah, I haven't messed with Tor yet. I've heard about it before when I was trying to look for some documents and stuff, and I didn't really figure out the whole dark web stuff, so I've kind of stayed away from it.
Yeah, I use it. I know the Pirate Bay BitTorrent website is only accessible through Tor now, I think. So there's things like that. It's not all for buying crack online or whatever.
Last year, I've created, I dabble in electronics, I guess we'll say. Basically an anonymous way of using Google or utilizing Google to search for what I want without being tracked through servers. It was just something I coded, actually, but because I just didn't like the idea of this organization monitoring what I was doing. So we'll get into that another time, but maybe we could even have some sort of security, somebody from Anonymous even would be great to get their perspective on on this whole virus and how what we post and how we present ourselves through these devices, how that's being used against us. Great documentary, Social Dilemma. Have you guys ever seen that?
Is that the one about the social scoring?
Oh, that's out of China. About it, I don't think they talked about. Are you talking about the social scoring in China system?
Yeah.
No, this is an actual documentary on Netflix. It just talks about all these organizations like Facebook and Google, YouTube and Twitter, how they're intentionally trying to fuck with our minds to keep us engaged into their useless platform.
Mm.
I'll send you a link if you want afterwards.
Yeah, I'd love to watch that.
Very fascinating.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it yet.
Cool. Ready for beverage? Whoops.
Yeah, right.
Flip there.
So yeah, it's been a good talk, gentlemen. We're at about the hour 15-minute mark, so probably wrap it up. But pleasure as always. Appreciate you coming on as our guest.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Discussion. And like I said, the next couple of weeks should be interesting, regardless of what happens. I mean, we're at the point now where either outcome, to me, would be crazy and surprising. If nothing happens with the amount of evidence that I am seeing in terms of there was massive voter fraud and whatnot, if none of that ends up mattering, that would be shocking to me. And obviously, if the quote unquote results of the election are overturned, that would be fairly shocking to me as well, simply because of the magnitude of an event that is. And yeah, so just get your basic preparations squared away. I don't think we'll see the collapse of the country at this point or anything like that, but we certainly could see civil unrest, maybe even widespread civil unrest, and who knows? So it's always better to be prepared than not.
Sure is.
Well, and I wish everybody, I know you've already had your Thanksgiving up in Canada, but Eric, have a good Thanksgiving. And if you think about selling 10-pound turkeys and higher in California, you might make a boatload this year. So,
right. I saw that. That's so bizarre that they would eat, like, what, you're not allowed to buy a 20-pound turkey to eat by yourself and feed your dog? I'm really upset that people aren't challenging these things. There's no way these rules would stand up to challenges legally, constitutionally. Like, apparently, if this was real, they were saying that Governor Newsom was going to be removing or tracking the sale of any turkeys above 10 pounds, because then that would indicate that you're having more than the allotted number of people over for Thanksgiving. So I thought it was a joke at first. I thought it was like a Babylon Bee article, but it seems like apparently it wasn't.
No, unfortunately, it's a real deal. So,
like, what authority are they doing that under? Because even if you grant that they, which I don't, but even if you accept that the rules that they've made were, legal and allowable, you could still just have a bunch of giant turkey if you wanted to eat turkey for the next 2 weeks, or cut a piece off and freeze it.
Yep.
Yeah. Just put some silhouette, some sort of hazy thing around your window so people can actually see inside. Big table, get 20 mannequins inside with all the lights.
I'm obviously not I'm not suggesting that anyone obviously do anything illegal, would never do that. But I think that people who are being the enforcement arms for these rules, like in here they have these in Nevada, they have these agents in blue shirts walking around enforcing the COVID. These people should be identified and publicly shamed for being literal fascists, and they should not be able to get away with have no consequences for being snitches and everything, basically.
That's what they are, snitch.
Yeah.
I missed part of what you were saying there. So there's guys in blue jackets that
they're I forget the name of it, but they're literally, it's a new position that's inspecting or verifying that businesses are following the COVID guidelines. So they're walking around, being Karens and being appearing and writing citations. Yeah, I would just say every business should just tear up the citation. I would, and not pay it, and take it to court, see if that works. And even if just everyone who got the citation went to court, the courts would be backed up for however long anyway. They wouldn't even be able to get the cases in.
Or save it for toilet paper.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So that makes me kind of furious the way people are going along with this stuff.
Yeah, that's wild. Not in Canada. We're going to whisper PM, but we're not that wild and these stories I tell you from the U.S. It's very entertaining. It must be entertaining for various people around the world looking at what's going on there. These stories, the weight of a turkey.
So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. go to Parlor if you want to check out our guest. It's 2020 is the new 1776 on Parlor. I'm on there as well as Rule the Wasteland, but as of right now, I'm barely using it. I just signed up. But rulethewasteland.com always. Prepper Logic, YouTube channel for Shay. And you're working on another offshoot project. Are you releasing that yet?
Oh, the preppertrifecta.com
Yeah.
website. Yeah, I'm taking clips from the show and I'm just kind of making small, we're redirecting people to this new domain I bought. And it's sort of like, it has a countdown. I'm building it. It's going to take additional clips, maybe some images, things like that. Maybe there'll be a stockpile of our memes there. So yeah, thanks for plugging that. In about sometime in the next 20 minutes, we'll update it with future guests that we have, previous guests, and direct links to Eric's channel where the show is hosted.
Right. Thanks again, Eric. Preppertrifecta.com, you said?
Preppertrifecta.com. Yeah,
right
not much to see there right now, but you'll see links and whatnot for future guests down there
awesome.
Shortly. So we're going to build what we do here. We're essentially building on, and that preppertrifecta.com is going to be the sort of the gateway to keep in the know with with what we're building here. And I think it's pretty cool. It's been a lot of fun. And we got a lot of cool things coming up.
Cool. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate everyone watching and coming on as a guest as well. So we'll be talking to you later.
Be safe. Watch your six, y'all.
Likewise.
Cool. Yeah.
All right.